the fact that her younger brother had died 7 years before me, of course, so she couldn't believe it. She adored this guy. And what it did was, because he was going to try to get to Palestine, it made her much more of a Zionist. And she was a famous teacher. She gave lectures. She became very important in WIZO, Women's International Zionist Organization. She was a leader there. And that turned me into, because she said, "You're becoming a Zionist through your mother's milk." That was her system. That was her reason for all these things. That's as far as the intimate. But as to getting into the Air Force, that was a bigger problem. And my brother came on leave, or his son was born. And I said to him, "Listen, my friends, my good friends, my best friends, so they're joining the army and I'm sitting at home." So she said, "That's the way it's got to be." My brother arrived and I said to him, "What can you do?" He said, "Leave Mum to me." And they went into the bedroom, and an hour later he came out and he winked at me. And I said, "What's happening here?" He said, "Mum will tell you why she's allowing you to go and join the army." I spoke to her and she said, "The reason I'm allowing you is that your brother explained to me that if you want to be a pilot, you can't. If you want to be anything but a pilot, you don't understand. The pilots don't die. They parachute out if necessary and so on, but they don't die. They're navigators and they're bomb aimers, and these people, they can't get out of the airplane." I don't know. The story my brother could tell were rather amazing. And she said, "If you promise me you'll be a pilot, I'll sign this paper." And I signed it. And I joined the army, the Air Force, initial training in somewhere up in the north. And I loved it. I loved it from day one. And finally I got my wings above average in everything. I had my partner, because we were twin engine pilots, my partner, a man called Dishi, was a wonderful guy, and he later became the mayor of Johannesburg. Had 2 daughters, and we remained friends until he died. And then they did a trick on us. On the day that we got our wings, there were about 28 of us, I think, or 24 of us, somewhere in the 20s. We got our wings, and then we were called into a hall, and a fairly, I don't know, major or something, he got up, he said, "I've got good news for 8 of you." What's the good news? The good news is that there are 8 positions for co-pilots in the best aircraft in the world, which is the B-17? No, that's the other. B-24 Liberators. And they're the biggest, the fastest, the longest. Now, I had spoken to this man who had been his name begins with an M, Margot. I fell in love with the daughter of the one of the most brilliant lawyers that South Africa ever had, who happened to be an incredible lawyer, and a dear friend of Margot. And Margot used to come and he told me stories that I'll never forget. And he said, when you get your wings, you'll join my squadron. And already it was 24 Squadron was just unbelievable. The rate of accidents was completely different. He was an incredible man. Until you did a blindfold test, he won't allow you to go on a trip. I mean, you know, as a bomb dropper. And it was a very difficult thing. There were about, 57 different buttons and things. You had to go through, and he made sure you couldn't see anything. And he built a marvelous, I mean, he just was an incredible man. And when I got onto a squadron, he asked why I didn't join his squadron. So I always spoke to him about it. When this guy got up before us after we got our wings, and he gave us the story, he says, you don't have to go to Palestine. In Palestine, you'll do your actual bombing training. A great chochem, you see, not to do the training, but to get this wonderful thing and get into action 3 weeks earlier. So I immediately put up my arm, and 7 other idiots put up their arms, and the 8 of us went. Within a month and a half, there were only 5 of us, and the war was coming to an end anyway. And we only got to the squadron in November, late in November. There was snow in the south of Italy. We shared a base, not a base, just the thing the plane takes off from. What is it? They were flying B-17s, which were flying fortresses, and we were flying the B-24 Liberators. And they flew by day, and the mechanics worked by night. And we flew by night, and the mechanics worked by day. And we took off padded metal. And at one point they said, we have to save your bombs. If you don't use them to drop, you must bring them back. And when we used to land on this metal with 5 tons of bombs hanging there, I got a bad feeling all the time. But you know why they wanted those 8 pilots? Because they had just lost 8 pilots. And you know, it is unbelievable. But after the first raid, and with all the attack coming up and so on, I really wasn't frightened. Even when we were hit by some, you got into the mood of bombing Hitler. That and you know, out of the 8 boys, just Dishy and myself were Jewish. But the guy who trained me in night flying, he was lost on one of he joined as a captain. His name was Senior, and I actually built I've got photographs of it, of course, a gymnasium which his brother, Boris Sr., who you probably heard about, a great friend of Asa Weitzman, he paid for it. He suggested it to me. I said it would be a pleasure. I'd give him a much cheaper. And it's still standing there in Crossmoriaro. But, you know, I found out that one of the reasons I wasn't more frightened, and I didn't understand it, because the flak was coming up and exploding and so on. I never heard it. I never heard it once. I had wonderful ears at the time. I had a 1,200 horsepower engine as close to me as you are to me. And the sides of the B-24 were thin metal, and there was no insulation, nothing. You can't hear these things. They can explode near you. You know, if I thought that if I'd heard these things, it would have been a different thing. No, we lost three guys rather quickly. Accidents. You're coming in total darkness if there's no moon. And we had wonderful navigators, much better than the Americans. Some of them were British and some of them were South Africans. They were marvelous guys. And in total darkness, you're all converging to the same point, but you don't see each other. You're not allowed to put any lights on. If you're underneath one, you can see some turbines, some red rings and so on. But if you're level, I watched my friend, because we had my dear friend, not Jewish, and he had a big letter on his plan that I remembered. And I watched him, and a bomb fell from the aircraft just above him, and the thing exploded. All the planes around rocked and so on, but he was killed instantly. And I saw another friend, a school friend of mine, and they were there were two airfields intersecting, and the two were coming after 5 hours of bombing and so on, coming to their respective places. They hit the same amount of wing. The wing was a 110-foot wing, a wonderful wing. They came, and I watched the spirals of fire. I didn't know what it was until they exploded quite near us. And the third one, I don't know what the hell happened to them. But I don't know if you've ever heard of this squadron, 34 Squadron and 31 Squadron. I'm sorry, yes, that's right, 34 and 31. I was on both of them. Once I flew with Bobby Locke, who was the champion golfer in the world at the time, but he was in uniform, he was a pilot. And the squadron was a terrible squadron. You can't believe what went on with that squadron. They made that squadron in August of 1944. Now listen to this. They get a meeting, and the meeting is about dropping arms in Warsaw. And we didn't realize, I wasn't there, thank God, but 12 planes went out, each with 8 guys aboard. And I was speaking to some ex-pilot, they didn't but they weren't in the war. It's hard for them to believe, but the planes had to put down their flaps and and fly as slowly as possible so that they'd be sure to drop the guns and the ammunition to the Poles, the Poles that were fighting with General Anders and so on. 12 of them were shot down. No, 6 of them, of the 12 were shot down. There wasn't one guy who survived. There was a ring of Germans around them just waiting. And so the South African go-between to the Royal Air Force said, listen, we weren't constrict, what do you call a person who's called up to, I can't remember it anyway, we said to them, we don't want to do another job like this. So the information person got the boys together and he said, we have a message from Winston Churchill. And Winston Churchill says that this is a vital thing, and if you can get some people to volunteer, it'll be a good thing. So 12 idiots, brave idiots, they went up the same thing, only out of the 12, 5 were shot down. But these weren't the only ones. Our squadrons weren't the only. There were other people. They're just piling up. You can't believe a thing like that can happen so late in the war. That was one thing. Another thing is, already in September, they call, everybody sits together and there's a map and they tell you what you have to do and what the problems are and how important it is and all that sort of thing. No moon. But there are going to be fires there that are going to be lit by the locals who are anti-German, and it's at the base of the mountains. So one guy said, but how can we drop it if there's no moon? So he said, you're not allowed to show that where your aircraft is, they'll just shoot you and so on. 12 guys, 12 planes. Unbelievable. 6 were shot down. They were shot down. 6 crashed into the blooming mountains. About 2 years ago, there was a get-together in South Africa of the relatives, because it was so many years since their husbands were killed. I mean, who does a thing like that? And why did they agree to it? Why did they agree to it? I mean, you can't fly a big Liberator with 5 tons of bombs. You can't fly it with no moon near a mountain, for God's sake, if you can't see the fires on the ground. This is the sort of thing that was happening for no really good reason. And this was the squadron that we'd put our hands up like idiots, what can I tell you?